Welcome to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And on today's episode, we're talking about apathy, indecision, and what lies behind it. You had a why for going into medicine, but maybe it's been years since you revisited that. And what is your vision for the future, for your family, for that generational impact? You know, a lot of people haven't even taken the time to consider it. And we have a couple of coaching calls as part of our discovery that help you.
If your why is strong enough, you'll deal with whatever how comes along your way. You'll find that fortitude internally to make that happen. So fortunately on the tax side, like, hello, this is what we do. Push the easy button. We got you.
I just want to set up why we're having this conversation because we are talking to lots of doctors every week, and we do something called a cash flow recovery, and we can show them in black and white based on what they're earning, what they're spending, how much they're overpaying in taxes. And the numbers are quite staggering for a lot of them. I mean, 6 figures plus. And so we just think, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you could save $200,000 or more on your tax bill this year, like, sign me up. And yet quite a few of them are, you know, they drag their feet. They are like, oh, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife. And we think, what is holding you back? And the conclusion we've come to, but I think there's a lot of reasons, but you know, these are high earning people who are easily paying their bills. They're saving for their future. And yes, they could do a lot with that savings, but they just don't feel the pain immediately. Like, they're frustrated with paying too much in taxes. And yet, you know, oh, do I really want to put the effort in to save this money? And which is what comes back to stewardship. Like, should you be paying all that money to the government? What could you be doing with that money if you saved it? So we just wanted to explore that a little bit to help, you know, us understand, and the doctors we're speaking to, you know, to help them make that decision and the why, you know, the why behind it.
Yeah. So I do think it's a good question of why this apathy exists. And I think if you look at where apathy comes from, it probably comes from different places for different people. I can imagine some people, you know, perhaps they're self-made, they didn't grow up with money, and so what they have currently is much more than they ever thought they were going to have or experience. And so it's like, again, the law of diminishing returns. Like, is it worth it for me to invest the extra time, energy, or effort to extract that? If the answer is no, the answer is no. Keep paying your bill. You can complain all you want about it, but until you get to a place where you're willing to invest what you need to in order to extract yourself from that place, then it's just going to be the same situation. But apathy, I don't know. How do we cure apathy? How do we find it in ourselves to do something about that? And this applies to more than, by the way, just money. Like, someone could complain about feeling, you know, out of shape all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, are you willing to do the work to extract that from your life? So I think some of this involves human behavioral change. And that always, to me as a coach, because so much of what I do is in the coaching realm, you've got to have a stronger why. If you don't tap into the why behind it, you're not going to have the energy to do the what in order for that to happen.
Yeah, I think not necessarily just an individual, but I think culturally as well. There's I can recall a handful of conversations that I've had with doctors over the years where we've had this conversation and they would open up and say, I'm a doctor. I'm a successful doctor. And I need to look like I'm a successful doctor with my family and friends and colleagues that are around. Well, what does look like a successful doctor mean? Mean the Mercedes or $4 million house, or, you know, you're wearing nice tie and suit to the office and under your white coat? What does that mean? Right. And I think so there's certain aspects to that, but I think you're exactly right. Well, no matter if it's individual or culturally, there is a more of a deeper root understanding or root cause that we need to uncover. right? Now
Mhm.
we're not looking to, hey, lay on my couch. How are you feeling today? But there is the sense of that because
Mm.
the apathy is what's driving them, not their dissatisfied. But here's the thing is when you have emotions that are negative emotions because of apathy, so taxes, and that's going to be a negative emotion that has a solution to it, but you've chosen not to solve it. It's still that negative emotion that is added to your persona. You're frustrated with the people at your front desk because they're not addressing the things that you've asked them to address, but you're not also comfortable with firing and hiring people in your practice. Now you have two things that are negative, that are emotionally weighing down on you. Then you are frustrated with your appointment setter because they're double booking you and patients are calling and they're frustrated, you see, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And then you just got a bill from one of your vendors saying that they're increasing the costs on your goods and services. These all add up. They're all separate issues that if they happened in any one day and time on their own without these other issues would not be a big deal. You would address it. You'd have the energy to figure out what to do with it. You'd be very confident and emotionally engaged. But now you have all these things, right? And so it's easy to say, I'm sick of my taxes. But we've seen, Joe, as a couple of our members, right? The number one thing they talked about was drama.
Mm.
We're finding now that we're working with them, we thought what drama meant in our initial conversations. Now we're seeing what drama means. Now we're working with them. It was just not that initial conversation of what we thought the drama meant, right?
Right. Everyone has their interpretation of what it means.
That's right.
Well, and that's part of the coaching process when we work with people is really two lists that you can create. The first list is, what am I tolerating? And I like what you're saying, Bob, around this, because that apathy is actually, it might be an amalgamation of all these different negative emotions or experiences. So that one of the ways to get out of this, and I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, doctor, take this advice and implement it now. You don't need a coach, to do this. Like, just take what I'm about to say and do it for yourself. The first question and the first list to create is, what am I tolerating? So to Bob's point, am I tolerating employees who aren't following instructions? Am I tolerating vendors who, yank me around all the time? What am I tolerating in my life? And this can go way beyond just your business. This could be, I'm tolerating that my freaking right passenger tire in the rear always leaks air. Okay, like, I'm tolerating this, so I have to fill it up all the time. Okay, what are you tolerating in your business and your life? Just make a list of it. And there's a point to me saying this. The other is, what would delight me? And so think about, if I walked into the office, what would delight me? If I walked into the office and I saw that it was bright and sunny and clean, or I saw that the staff greeted me and everyone this way, or when I walked home, there's fresh flowers on the table. I don't know, whatever for you would delight you. So these two lists really compare this. And Bob, I love what you're saying, because it's chunking it down to now actionable things. So if what you're tolerating is, I'm tolerating overpaying in taxes, if it's a part of this amalgamation of all these frustrations, it just lives in this pot that just gets stirred by every single thing that happens. But if you can extract that ingredient out and say, I'm going to do something about this, chunk it down to things that you can actually take action on. And then you've got to find it in yourself. What's the why behind that? Is it even worth the effort for me to do it? If it's not, fine, put it back in the stew and let that happen. And, until it becomes frustrating enough, but pull out those things that you can do something about, and then have the why behind why I'm doing this. And that's what, I mean, we talked about this just earlier when we were in the pre-episode, talking about, like, what would you do? Hey, doc, what would you do if you had an extra couple $100,000 a year? And we're not talking about buying the boat, going on the bigger vacation. Like, what would you do with your future if you had that to invest? What would that look like? What would that feel like? So if you need to borrow some like emotional why, process that thought. If I save this money on taxes, if you've had a conversation with someone on our sales team, you know what your cash flow recovery number is. If you haven't had a conversation with someone on our sales team, you need to reach out and understand, what is my cash flow recovery number? Because that number is really critical. What would I do with that? And what would it feel like to know that that's moving me towards my future? You've got to generate that emotional why to deal with the what that you've got to deal with in order to get through it. Last thing I'll say, and I promise I'll be quiet,
Not
I
at
think,
all.
for a
Keep
little
going.
while.
No, it's great.
So Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Phenomenal book. And in that book, and I think he kind of borrows upon some of what Nietzsche said, it is any how can be endured if the why is strong enough. And I won't get into all the reasons how he came up with this, but the long story made short is he survived Auschwitz and a couple of other camps. And he observed in other humans who were there with him, the ones who survived, why did they survive? And what he found is the stronger the why for survival, the more likely they were to deal with what they needed to. So if your why is strong enough, you'll deal with whatever how comes along your way. You'll find that fortitude internally to make that happen. So fortunately on the tax side, like, hello, this is what we do. Push the easy button. We got you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You just mentioned those two quotes. In one of our episodes, we talked about some of the most important books, self-improvement, personal development books that we've read. And one of them that I had mentioned was Who, Not How. And, I think so many times we try to figure out how I'm going to solve something. How am I going to solve something? How am I going to solve something? And then that how you got to pour in and spend and invest time and energy into getting a certain expertise, when all you have to do is look for a who that has all that. And pour your, there was a point in time in this whole business development and personal development period is find your weakness and improve your weakness. Or how about as a business owner, how about you find somebody whose strength is my weakness, you bring them on board, and then you focus on your strengths. So you highlight your strengths. So that who, not how is such an important thing, but you got to know your why. You got to know your why, because then there's really no point.
Right.
There just is no point. You're just kind of roaming around, just trying to, today is today and tomorrow is tomorrow. And then tomorrow is going to be today and tomorrow is going to be tomorrow. And,
Right.
that's horrible. Can't deal with it. I personally can't deal with it. I can't handle members, and I'm going to be as direct and blunt as I possibly can. I cannot handle members who wishy-washy and who enjoy just constantly complaining about the situation when we've provided a solution for them. Stop it.
Well, and Bob, that's really interesting because and when you look at like counseling, or when people, or so I've heard, when people in counseling, deep counseling, when they've got like addiction to things, like there's some payoff they receive.
Yeah.
From this activity or this thing. So some people are in chaos, not because they have to be, but because they are addicted to chaos.
Yeah.
They can't extract themselves from that addiction.
Yeah.
And so I think some of us need to ask that question of ourselves. What's the payoff for me always being able to bitch and moan about overpaying in taxes? There's some payoff you're getting because you're not doing anything to solve it.
Yeah.
There's some payoff that you get from having employees who cause drama. Okay, what is that for you? Are you addicted to that feeling of chaos? It's the wrong thing. I tell you, it's the wrong thing to be addicted to.
Absolutely.
I used to have a coffee company, and the tagline was get addicted to something good. It was a good coffee brand. So it's like, find that addiction that is actually good for you. Like, be addicted to doing good for other people or whatever it might be. But you've got to find the why behind all of this. I think to answer the question that we're addressing, how do you overcome apathy and indecision? I think a lot of this is find the why.
Yeah. And here's the thing is you became a physician for a reason. There was a reason. And if you go through all of that studying and learning and giving up a decade of your life when your colleagues, your friends were graduating and starting their careers, you were still not in your career. You were still learning your career. There is a point in time, though, that you got to understand that you did that because you want to serve others. And now you're allowing this, probably a negative addiction, if this is you, somebody who's having a difficult time making decisions to move forward when the solution has been provided to you, because you're making these decisions because you forgot your why. Why did you become a physician? To serve others. So if you're focused on these negative things, take a rewind, hit the rewind button. If you remember the tapes and the be kind, rewind, be kind to
Blockbuster.
yourself, rewind and revisit, to Joe's point. Why are you doing this? And the reason being is that if we can help you solve these little issues that are nagging at you, that allows you to accomplish your why that much more. You can be the best darn surgeon, the best darn physician for your patients in your area. We have members who have people that come all over the country and sometimes from other countries
From the world.
to be served, because they want to be the best darn physician for anybody and everybody in their specialty. We want to be, this is our level of focus. We want to be the best we can. That's why it's frustrating when we're talking to somebody who constantly wallows in that little pond of mediocrity, room for one, can't deal with it. Cannot deal with it. I want to be able to be emotionally connected and supportive and sympathetic, empathetic, or what aesthetic you want to talk about it. But for me personally, I think it's pathetic, because each of us could have that decision to do that as well, but we choose not to, because we have focused on our why. We've been kind, we've rewinded and refocused on our why, and constantly be better for the next person next to us. And that builds your culture and your practice to do the same. You find people in your practice that don't meet that culture. They will exit out. You bring in people who are like that. And then you have patients who want to be here. And then you don't have to worry about taxes, because you've built a wonderful team, including us, and built up a wonderful culture in your practice. And your why is being met. So anyways, that was a little soapbox. I had to get that off my chest. And I mean, we love you. You care for us. We want you to be the best. I do not want to go into your office and you treat me with that mentality, because that is going to come through into me. And I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I ended up having, I was starting to get a cold. I get 2 colds a year, but I was starting to get a cold. It was right in our busy season. So you remember this time, Joe. It was right in our busy season. And my assistant at the time was proactive. She got me an appointment with the urgent care down the street, went to the urgent care, asked me all these questions, gave me an antibiotic. Okay. Took the antibiotic. What she didn't tell me was I needed to take probiotics with this antibiotic. What ended up happening was this antibiotic ended up causing colitis in my gut. And I ended up in the hospital for 4 days trying to get this colitis healed, when the solution was there in the next sentence of, I'm going to be prescribing you an antibiotic. Please make sure you take a probiotic. Here's a couple. I would not have spent 4 days, and it wasn't just 4 days in the hospital. It was just 4 days in the hospital. It took me 2 months to recover, because the medication they prescribed when I left was not enough to get me healed. So I had a relapse.
So you didn't take the probiotic?
I didn't know to. They never told me to.
Oh, they didn't tell you. Oh.
Yes. And it could have been right in the instructions. Next, we're prescribing this. We've already called it in or sent it into your pharmacy. And by the way, next thing, get this probiotic or these options, right? You have to take a probiotic with this. They never said that. Now, they didn't know that. What was their mental state? Why did they not know that? What did they not know and educate themselves about the body of an antibiotic, which I would imagine this is something that's very basic for you as a physician to learn, is antibiotics. I never knew that. I don't get sick. So this was my very first visit to a hospital since me being born. I was 48. Took me 48 years to have a visit in the hospital, and it was preventable. Right. And not until I reached out to a member, client, business partner of mine who is a physician that he said, oh, no, here. And he prescribed what I needed to have. We spent some time together, telemedicine, and he fixed me.
But the point is, like, how did that doctor show up? Like, what was in that amalgamation apathy stew that was causing them to show up and
Underperform.
in this way? And so I think it's extracting all these things from that. How do I move from apathy to energy? Because I would almost call the opposite of apathy energy. So how do I move from apathy to energy?
Yeah,
and again, you better have your strong why behind that, and then take the decisive action to move through whatever you got to deal with in order to get to that place.
And I think that's something really special about what we offer in our discovery process, is helping you uncover that why. You had a why for going into medicine, but maybe it's been years since you've revisited that. And what is your vision for the future, for your family, for that generational impact? A lot of people haven't even taken the time to consider it. And we have a couple of coaching calls as part of our discovery that help you take the time to uncover your values and your future goals. We call it your freedom roadmap. And so now we're not only showing you you're going to save this much on your tax bill this year, but we can then connect that savings to your ultimate vision, so you have that internal drive now to move forward to achieve those goals. So I love doing that work with our members. And, if you're ready to explore that why and that tax savings, we invite you to schedule your cash flow recovery. You can do that right on our website. You can find us on social, and we're excited to have that conversation with you. So until next time, go be a wealth maverick, and thanks for joining us. Bye.